Hi, I'm Phil Crocker and welcome to the 8th and final part of our series on playing better Blitz. In this video we're going to be looking at how we flex our basic strategy for different situations. So the previous 7 videos we've looked at were mostly focused on how we can speed up our play, and in this particular video we're going to be looking at how we can adjust our strategy for different situations. Firstly, if you're playing bullet rather than blitz, then bullet is often a time limit of say a minute for all your moves. Then that really gives you less choice as to how you want to allocate your time. Pretty much for bullet, I think you want to be going as fast as you can from the get-go. Looking the other way, if you play rapid, then there's quite a bit more choice. You can choose to get your opening moves as accurate as possible and then speed up in the middle game and later on, or you could spread the time evenly, or you could even treat it pretty much like a blitz game and try and put your opponent under pressure. Many different ways you could try and allocate your time. Live blitz, to my mind, has quite a different feel to it than online blitz. I've played thousands and thousands of games of online blitz now. Nowhere near as many games of blitz live, and certainly not as many in a tournament situation live. You have to move physical pieces. You have an opponent opposite you that you may well know rather than an anonymous username on the internet. You can't pre-move. It really does have a different dynamic, and on the whole I think it's harder to move as quickly in live blitz as it is online. So you need to make allowances for that. The other topic I wanted to touch on was online tournaments. So for the most part we've been looking at how we can win more or draw more games, certainly lose fewer games. Online tournaments has a slightly different target that you're aiming for, in that you're trying to maximize the number of tournament points that you get. So that may mean playing more games in the same time frame, so winning games more quickly, even if you lose a few more games in order to get more points. One way you could do that on Lichess in particular is to use the berserking functionality, where you take half the time, roughly speaking, of your opponent, but you get a bonus tournament point if you manage to win. So we'll look at that in a little more detail in a second, but berserking is one option you could consider, particularly if you are fast in terms of reaction times and mouse movements and so on. The other aspect of tournaments is streaks. So it's common to have a bonus point system if you hit 3 or more wins in a row. So you may get 2 points for the first win, 2 points for the second win in a row, and then 4 points for your third win, and 4 points for subsequent wins if you just carry on winning. If you lose or draw, then that streak is broken. So if you're on a streak, then it makes sense to try and keep it continuing, and to do that you would, to my mind, be less likely to berserk because that introduces more risk. And if you're in a level position, you might play on to the bitter end just to avoid a draw rather than accepting a draw. So aspects like that are worth considering. Other considerations for tournaments, online tournaments: you can potentially join after the start of a tournament, and if the pairings like they are on Lichess are often done based on the number of points that you've got so far in the tournament, then you will tend to get easier games if you join later on in the tournament. You could also pause. You could start the tournament at the start and pause, and if you're doing particularly well, and then particularly if you're on a streak, you might be able to continue that streak later on in the tournament with less risk of getting a particularly strong player. So a few little tricks you could consider to try and maximize your points. There are also team considerations. So if you're playing a tournament where you're also representing a team, then it makes sense to have half an eye on the team position, and if you need to hit a particular number of points for the team, then you might want to take additional risk or agree a draw in some situations to help the team. optimal berserking strategy. So berserking is one of those things you either love or hate, I think. I put some analysis here for when you might be likely to berserk. In essence, it's when there's no increment, then the kind of the way it's worked out, the maths of berserking tends to favour that practice. So, for example, if the time limit was 3 minute plus 2 second increment, then a berserker would only get 1.5 minutes, but your opponent would get 3 minutes and the 2 seconds increment. Whereas if it was just 3 minutes, no increment, then the berserker would still get 90 seconds for the entire game, but the opponent would also only get 180 seconds. So if you're berserking and your opponent has increment, it gives an additional way of winning for your opponent, where they can just, in a sense, just prolong the game as long as possible in the hope that the berserker loses on time. So when should you be more likely to berserk? When there's no increment, if you are young and fast, fairly self-explanatory. Maybe if your opponent berserks, then you should be more likely to do so yourself. And also, if you're playing in a tournament where the clock is about to run out, then that might be an additional argument to try and get an extra game in before the tournament finishes. And I mean, be less likely to berserk. I mean, you could just say the opposite of what we've just said there. But if you're on a streak, that's an additional consideration, as we mentioned before. You risk breaking the streak if you berserk, so be less likely to berserk if you are on a streak. And if your opponent is particularly high rated, then and or fast themselves, then perhaps you should hold off on the berserking. If you are faced with berserker, then, well, I put 2 rules. Don't panic. That's easy to write that. Easy to say it. Much harder to do in practice. I've lost numerous games against berserkers. It does put a lot of pressure on you when someone's replying to your moves almost instantly. You don't have time to think yourself very easily, and you can quickly fall short of on time yourself. So don't panic. Another consideration is not to simplify too soon. If you can prolong a game, keep the pieces on, then that may work to your advantage, because you might think, well, let's just get it to an end game and then I can hold that. But in an end game, there might be a lot more potential for a berserker to pre-move and basically make instantaneous moves and put you under even more pressure. So yeah, good luck with the berserkers, because I think you need that as well, right? Okay, so that was the final video on this current series. Hopefully you enjoyed this one and the rest of the series. Please post any queries, any comments. If you like the video, please give it a like, or even subscribe to the channel. And there's also my book, Better Chess Faster, on Amazon, if you've enjoyed the topics we covered here. If you have any general comments on the series, please make those. If there is interest, then I might consider doing some further videos, maybe on practical play, or taking some other ideas for chess improvement to look at. So thanks for watching the series. Bye bye.